Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Common Knowledge here on Common Knowledge MTG. That's the name of the channel. Almost forgot the name of the channel, but it's the same thing as the name of the series. That's not true. I was going to say a name of a different channel because that's a different intro that I do for a different channel of mine. Don't worry about it. We're going to talk about some common Magic the Gathering cards and see if they're any good for the Pauper format. Let's see what our first one is. It's Cavern Thoktar. 5 and a green for a 5/5 beast. And for 1 and a red, this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So it has the worst fire breathing. Fire breathing for twice the cost. Bad. Bad, right? 6 mana for a 5/5, not the most amazing rate there. And then worse fire breathing. It's a different color pip, so you got to be playing multiple colors at that point. I don't particularly like doing that if I don't have to. And I don't think this card is good enough to justify playing multiple colors. If you already are playing a Gruul deck and you need a threat, one, you have a billion better threats than this in those colors. But I guess you could play it. I just never would. I'm going to give this thing a 2.1. Cost too much. And without the evasion, I don't think the fire breathing does all that much for you. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan. Guild Pact Informant, we've just done this card recently, and it was okay. It was okay. We talked about other cards that were better, and I think I got some comments about other cards that were better, and those comments were right too. It's fine, but it's not great. So we'll skip it. And what is our actual second card of the day? It is Restless Bones. I love this art. One of my favorite arts in Magic the Gathering. And I wish the card was maybe a little bit better so I could find a place to play it. 2 and a black for a 1/1 skeleton. You can pay 3 and a black and tap it to give a target creature Swamp Walk until end of turn. Meaning it can't be blocked, but as long as the defending player controls a swamp. And you can pay 1 and a black to regenerate this creature. The art is so good. Don't get me wrong. Glenn Fabry, fantastic job here. But the card itself is just not great. 3 mana for a 1/1 already feels terrible. And yeah, it can regenerate itself and stay on the board, but it regenerates itself for 1 and a black. That's a lot of extra mana to keep up just to keep this card alive, which you're going to have to because it's a 1/1. So if your opponent tries to lightning bolt this thing, that's too many you have to pay. If you block with this thing to try to stop a Tolarian Terror from coming in or something, that's another 2 mana you got to pay to keep this on the board. If you try to swing in and your opponent blocks it, that's another 2 mana you got to pay. That all adds up at some point, and I don't think that makes it worth it. And then his other signature ability here is paying 4 mana and also having to tap the creature. So if you can't even hold up the mana to have this thing block as well as give something Swamp Walk, you have to choose, well, if I need to give something Swamp Walk, one, it can't be this creature because this creature's tapped now, and that's not going to work. And not that you'd want to anyway, because it's a 1/1. How much damage are you really doing at that point? But having to keep the creature tapped down so it can't even be a good blocker on the defense side, all these things cost way too much. The card initially, both of these abilities, I think it's a really bad card. And it sucks because the art is so good. The art is just so good. I'm going to give it a 1.1. I really do hate the mechanics of this card. But I really do love the art. Next up, Stuffed Bear. 2 mana for an artifact. You can pay 2 mana, and this artifact becomes a 4/4 green bear artifact creature until end of turn. We love talking about grizzly bears here on the channel. And 2 mana for a bear, that's pretty close to a grizzly bear, right? But then you have to pay another 2 mana. But when you do, you get a 4/4 bear. So it's kind of like you paid 4 mana for 2 grizzly bears. Now, that's only for the turn, so you have to keep paying 2 mana every time you want to animate this thing into a bear. But, 2 mana each turn to get a 4/4 doesn't feel so bad. It's not good. It's not good at all. I mean, if there's one deck that could play this, it might be Tron decks, because they have plenty of colorless mana to play around with. You can get so many better cards to play, so many better colorless cards to play in your Tron decks than Stuffed Bear. This is a really bad card. I can't lie to you or myself here. This thing is a 1.4, maybe. That even feels a little high, but we're going to stick with 1.4. Not a very good card. Goblin Racketeer, 3 and a red for a 4/2 Goblin Rogue, and when this creature attacks, you may goad target creature or defending player controls. Goad, not an amazing ability in Pauper, and Goad means until your next turn that creature attacks each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able, but in one-on-one, there's no other opponent to attack if able, but the having to attack part still works. So you are forcing one of their creatures to attack, which can be good. Sometimes they have a creature that they're trying to hang back with, and you can go, no, I'm gonna force you to swing in with that now because I have a good blocker. But there are plenty of other ways for them to get around that, whether it's tapping the creature down. You're never going to be able to catch an Llanowar Elves with this, right? Because the Llanowar Elves will be able to tap for mana on the opponent's next turn, and then they get to the attack step and they go, oh, sorry, you can't attack, it's already tapped. If we were just talking about Tron, if they have a Tron deck out there, like a monster Tron deck that's playing the Pinnacle Kill Ship, that's it's a thing that can be stationed, so you can tap your creatures down to station that, and then hey, you can't attack, they're already tapped down. You have plenty of ways of tapping creatures. You can bounce creatures back to your hand. They can kill your creatures to be able to swing in freely now. There's all sorts of things that can happen. So Goad is great in Commander, great in multiplayer formats, but when it's one-on-one like this, it loses a lot of its usefulness, and then the usefulness that it still does have is very easy to get around, I believe. So really what you're getting here is a 4-mana 4/2. And it seems pretty bad when you put it like that. Let's go ahead and give this thing a 2.1, I think. And move right along. Nefkrop Entangler, 1 and a red for a 2/1 human warrior with trample. And you may exert this creature as it attacks. So when you do, it gets +1/+2 until end of turn. And when you exerted creature won't untap during your next untap step. So we've talked about exert on the channel before. I don't generally like exert because you're putting everything in one basket for one turn, and then you lose out on the effect for the second turn. And most of the times with exert, and this creature is a pretty clear example, you're usually getting a worse deal. So imagine this card without exerting this. You swing in for 2. Let's say you hit the opponent. Next turn, this thing untaps, and you can swing in for another 2. That's 4 damage. Now, let's say you exert it on turn 1. It becomes a 3/3. You swing in, it hits him for 3. Well, then next turn, this thing doesn't untap. So after 2 turns, if you didn't exert it, you're doing 4 damage. If you did exert it, you're doing 3 damage. That's worse. Now, you can argue that, well, when you make it a 3/3, it can't be chump blocked as easily. Maybe it stays alive where the normal version of the card wouldn't stay alive. And I get that, but at that point, I would just say play better cards. So here's me saying play better cards than this. Yeah, I don't like the exert on this. I don't generally like the card much to begin with. But I especially don't like it when you throw the exert on it. I think this is honestly actively bad for your deck. I'm going to give it a 1.6. I think it's quite bad. Conviction, 1 and a white for an enchantment aura that enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+3, and you can pay a white to return this aura to its owner's hand. Originally from Stronghold, old card. Oh, I do remember the Stronghold art now. Now that you mention it, I have not seen this this Ultimate Masters or Ethereal or art. Don't remember that, but I don't know. You know, it's a whole extra mana to get one more toughness than a Holy Strength. Holy Strength isn't a good card. That's not worth putting into your Pauper deck. I don't really think this is either. Yeah, it has a way to return it to your hand, so you know, if your opponent tries to kill the creature that this thing's attached to, yeah, you can bounce this back to your hand and then put it on a different creature. I just don't think +1/+3 of stats is very good, and I certainly don't think it's 2 mana good. Yeah, I think it's pretty poor overall. Now, the only way that I would consider this to be good is that you do have some cards in Pauper with Eerie, and I think you might even have some with Constellation. And those are effects that care about enchantments entering the battlefield, or is it casting enchantments or enchantments entering the battlefield? Can't remember which. For our purposes, basically the same. But the idea that you have the ability to play and bounce and play and bounce and play and bounce an enchantment means that you can potentially get multiple triggers of Eerie or multiple triggers of Constellation, and those are cool things. Something to consider, but I think the mana starts to stack up a lot at this point. That it's 3 mana for this loop, 2 to play it, 1 to bounce it back. 2 of those 3 mana have to be white pips. I don't think you're going to get enough worth out of this to make that work. I guess if you have infinite mana, this is a way of it working with that black creature with Eerie that drains an opponent. Yeah, it's potentially an infinite combo, but this is one I just don't think is quite worth it. And even if you tried to use that infinite combo, that is pretty easy to disrupt. If you just kill the creature or counter the spell, lots of ways of stopping that loop from happening because it doesn't work at instant speed. Anyway, yeah, not a great card. Did I already score it? I don't think I did. Let's go. I'll give it a 2, I guess. I don't think it's quite no, I'll bump it down to a 1.9. There you go. Ardent Militia is 4 and a white for a 2/5 human soldier with vigilance. That's not particularly good, but I do like the art. I think Ardent Militia has gotten a lot of good arts in its time, if I remember right. Portal art's all right. I do remember this Weatherlight art. I like that Weatherlight art quite a bit. It goes into 6th edition. And this is the 7th edition and on. Yeah. So this is a pretty cool art too. Good job, Paolo Parente. Who did the Weatherlight art? That's Zena Saunders. Yeah, I like that one too. I just like these guys. Some fun guys. Card's not very good. 5 mana for 2/5 is pretty bad to begin with, and I don't think the vigilance really helps it out all that much. I mean, it's nice to have a vigilance on a creature like this. 2/5. You swing in and having that 5 toughness to block any opponent's attacks on the next turn. Sure, but how useful is a 2-power creature for 5 mana? You know, the math just doesn't work out in your favor on that one. Let's give this thing a 2.2, I think. Owlbear is a great creature type. It's a bird bear, but I love owlbears. You know, I'm not the biggest D&D guy, but it's a cool idea. It's a cool idea for a creature. Let's see what the Magic the Gathering version is. It's 3 and double green for a 4/4 bird bear. with trample, and it has keen senses. When this creature enters, you draw a card. Not terrible. Just kind of like a normalish good card. The problem is, you've heard me say it time and time again, I'm sure, when you're thinking about a green creature that costs 5 mana, it's going to go up against Avenging Hunter, and you're going to be left wanting. Because Avenging Hunter is a 5/4 with trample, and it's one less green pip than this. And it gives you the initiative. And the initiative is better than drawing a card. Almost all the time. That's just how it is. If you're not as good as Avenging Hunter, 5 mana green creatures just don't cut it. So until they ban Avenging Hunter, and I don't think they will. They've kind of banned everything else that gives you the initiative. So I kind of don't know why Avenging Hunter is the only one left, or the only one they're okay with at this point. But as long as that's in the format, I don't think Owlbear here really has a chance. That's kind of sad, because I think it's a cool creature, and I think it's actually pretty okay for what you get. 5 mana for 4/4 isn't great, but when you add the trample on, that's all right. And then getting the cantrip effect it's just nice. I think this is just a good package. I think this would have been a really solid limited card. I wasn't playing limited at the time, but of this set's release. But good card generally, but not really enough for Pauper. Let's give this thing a. I'm still gonna give it a 3.2. The drawn card is really nice. It is also a bird. There's some stuff you could potentially do with that, like for Bloomburrow purposes. It'd be really nice if this was a beast and could go into the beast. It's not really Beast Storm, is it? But like there is like a beast deck that you can play in Pauper that draws you a bunch of cards, uses the Wiredwood Savage and things like that. So this would potentially be a good card for that if this thing was a beast. Unfortunately, it's not. Bird Bear, which makes more sense with the name of it, but a little less good as a Magic card. Next up is Spring Bloom Druid. 2 and a green for a 1/1 elf druid. When this creature enters, you may sacrifice a land. If you do, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. This is a Harrow. No, it's worse than Harrow. That's right. 'Cause Harrow puts them untapped, which is wild. Harrow's so good. People should play Harrow. You could play it in Pauper, in fact. I like Harrow. It's a great card. Originally from Invasion. Oh, originally from Tempest. Just the Invasion. This is the art I remember that originally came from Invasion, but Tempest originally. Gotcha. Harrow's a good card. Spring Bloom Druid is also a pretty good card. You know, Harrow's instant speed, right? Yeah, Harrow's instant speed. This is sorcery speed, and the lands come in tapped, and that's both of those aren't great. You kind of think Harrow might be the better card, but this is also a body, so it stays on the board. It can block as a 1/1. That's all right. You can blink this. You can bounce this, and it will keep on ramping you, and it'll put stuff in the graveyard, put lands in the graveyard for you. If you have ways of getting those out of the graveyard, that's not bad. This is a cool card. I see this get played in Commander a lot. As you can see, it shows up here as Zendikar Rising Commander, Kaldheim Commander, OTJ Commander, Dark Dragons. So it does see a fair bit of Commander play. I have an Abzan deck that's all about landfall that uses this. Great in just any kind of landfall deck, because you're just sacrificing a land and getting 2 more onto the board. That's 2 landfall triggers. That's pretty great, and it's in Foundation. So you see this a little bit in some of those landfall decks now, like these days, but maybe not quite as much. I think we probably just have better landfall effects, landfall enablers these days. But still, a card that finds some usefulness in some different formats. Pauper is not really one of them. that I've seen, but I think this is a totally playable Pauper card, and probably deserves a little bit more respect than it gets. I'm going to give this thing a 4.4, I think. I like it. I like it a fair bit. Serrated Arrows. Okay, baby. Serrated Arrows is a fun card for 4 mana for an artifact. Artifact enters with 3 arrowhead counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are no arrowhead counters on this artifact, you sacrifice it, and you can tap it and remove an artifact or remove an arrowhead counter from this artifact to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. The story I always hear about serrated arrows is that you needed to have there was a time, this is before my time playing Magic, but there was a time when Magic was being played where back in the day, back in the Homelands era, where pro Magic or sanctioned Magic, I guess, there were so few sets that were out that there was a rule that you had to play a card from every set. There had to be a card from every set in your deck somewhere, and a lot of decks would, like Homelands is a pretty famously poorly received set. Didn't the power was way down on it. People did not particularly like Homelands. Came out to very cheap prices to begin with because it was just kind of a stinker when it came out. And so the problem is there aren't really many good Homelands cards. That actually probably make an interesting series to see if there's anything from Homelands that is worth to play in Pauper. Maybe I'll make that video. But what people did was throw a one of serrated arrows in their sideboards, because at the very least this was a card that could be played in any deck because it's all generic mana. And I guess technically could be useful in killing some creatures. Even though it's costs a lot and it's slow and it's also not very good, but it's better than most of the other Homelands cards. There's a couple of other Homeland cards that are okay, but they couldn't be played in every deck. So this is the one that kind of got defaulted as the card people would play during that time of sanctioned Magic. These days, this card is just not really played at all. I think you could make an argument that this could go into, I was going to say Poison Storm, but this can go into a proliferate deck. Because the things that proliferate here works with this card kind of twice, which is nice, because it has arrowhead counters on it, so you can proliferate and put more arrowhead counters on the card so it can stay on the board longer, because it does have to sacrifice itself if it doesn't have any arrowhead counters. So if you keep proliferating the arrowhead counters, this stays on the board longer and longer. But it also puts a -1/-1 counter on a creature, and those can be proliferated as well. So that is a way of that's 2 ways that you're getting a lot more value out of this once something like proliferates in the format. And we have some proliferate. We have some decks that use proliferate. The problem is the decks that are proliferating are usually the decks that are using it with poison counters, because that's a faster way of killing your opponent. You only need 10 poison counters on your opponent to win versus 20 damage to the opponent to win in that way, or milling out 53 of their cards from their library. So this is just a slower way than what poison counters can do. So I don't think this actually does see any play in those decks. But if you were going to make an argument of a deck that it could go into, that'd be the one. It would be pretty solid against fairies decks to just be able to put -1/-1 counters on those things. Even for the fairies decks that are putting in ninjas, well, it still takes out the Moon Circuit Hacker, and with only 2 of these, you can take out the Ninja the Deep Hours as well. So I don't know. I think this probably is a playable card in Pauper. It is slow. 4 mana to put this on the table. Even if this is, because it's an artifact, you can tap it as soon as it comes in. It doesn't need haste or anything like that. So I don't have the heart to hate it. I don't think this ends up being a bad card. I know I at least have the time spiral time shifted version of this. I think I have a couple because it came in. It came in like one of the theme decks, I believe. Can't remember which one. I had a couple of those theme decks for time spiral. I like serrated arrows. I want to give it a decent score. I am going to, because proliferate can work really well with a card like this. I'm going to end up giving it a 3.3. I like it. I like it. It is too slow. It's probably not good enough, but it does make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, and that's worth some points, I suppose. Let's do a bonus card. It's April O'Neil, Kunoichi Trainee, 1 and a white for a 2/2 legendary creature, human ninja. And when April enters, you scry 2, and April cannot be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. Okay. I'm going to put aside the Universes Beyond stuff. Still not a huge fan, but let's just talk about the card generally as a normal card. Let's say this was Universes Within here. 2 mana for a 2/2. Okay, Grizzly Bear style. And you get to scry 2 when it enters. Okay, scrying 2 is pretty good. We scry 2 with things like Candy Trail in some decks, and scry 2, that helps fix your draws. I like that. It is an enters trigger, so you could potentially put it in like an Orzhov Blade deck and bounce it and play it again and get some more scries out of it. I don't hate that. And this not being able to be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater, so it's tougher for this thing to die. Not impossible for it, but could you put auras on this thing to make it bigger? And so now your opponent does have to chump because they can't block with the smaller guys. They have to block with the bigger guys. They can't block with the bigger guys and kill this thing. They can only block with the smaller guys that will definitely die to this. That's what I meant to say. So that's a possibility. Does this go in mono white heroic? Probably not. Probably not. But it could. It could. Could it go in Orzhov Blade? It could. The problem is Orzhov Blade already plays. So the other point that I want to make before I get into the decks, I suppose, is that it's legendary. And even though I still think legendary and common are not are not synonyms, I don't think they should go together. There is the argument that it's a really hard card to remove. Cast down is one of the premier removal effects in the format, and it doesn't work on April here. So that's solid. So now let's talk about the decks that could use it and why they might not play it. Orzhov Blade probably isn't playing this because they're already playing a legendary creature in the Irokosaki, the Shredder card. And that being a black legendary creature not only means that Cast Down doesn't work against it, Snuff Out doesn't work against it, Doom Blade doesn't work against it. There's a handful of other cards that are targeting black creatures, and they don't work against Irokosaki. So Irokosaki is a little bit tougher to kill in that way, and it's just better anyway. It has the sneak, it has the ability to draw a card. It's just a better card for Orzhov Blade decks. In white weenie style decks, we're playing Leonardo, which is also the legendary creature that you want to play. It has all the benefits of legendary creatures that April O'Neil does, but it is a better card. Similar to Irokosaki, it sneaks, which can be useful for other creatures with enters triggers. So I guess you could argue that it works with this, that you could sneak in a Leonardo, put the April back to your hand, play the April again, and be able to scry another 2. Maybe you could do that. I feel like Mono White Heroic is probably the best possible place for it. Fixing your draws a little bit. Make sure you get a card that's going to be useful to put on April the next turn. Mono White Heroic is not like a Bogle's deck in that the creatures don't have hexproof. So the creatures generally are smaller but get bigger faster. Like they have heroic. That's where the heroic part comes from. Mono white heroic, the heroic ability that gives them some boost when they're targeted with cards like auras. So they'll get +1/+1 counters, or they'll gain flying until end of turn, or they'll get a temporary boost. And April's not getting those things, but still, April being a harder creature to block. You know, if your opponent's playing mono blue terror, right? Most of the creatures in that deck are 5/5s and 6/5s. Yeah, they've got the one that I forgot the name, the one guy for one, but he flips into a 3/2, and once he flips into a 3/2, he can't block April O'Neil either. So I don't know. Maybe you could put a copy of this or 2 copies of this in your sideboard on Mono White Heroic as a card to swap in if you're going against some decks that are really only playing big dudes. Mono Black Sacrifice, maybe, maybe not, because they're playing lots of small guys that they then sacrifice. So Gruul Ramp, I suppose, but they're probably they're playing the Writhing Chrysalis that is making the spawns that could block this too. So that's the problem. It kind of has a tough place. Like where do you put it? It's okay. Like it's one of the better Grizzly Bears out there, just in terms of having an Inner's Trigger, a pretty decent Inner's Trigger, and also that other text that gives it some sort of evasion, and the legendary status making it better against decks that are using cast down. So it has some uses, but I don't think it's quite good enough in any one area to really see play. And so far, it has not seen play to my knowledge, and I think that's probably going to continue being the case. It just doesn't quite do enough. I'm going to give this thing I'm going to give it a 3. And the Inner's Trigger really is the big reason I'm willing to give it a 3, and the mana cost. It's just 2 mana is not bad to scry 2 and get a 2/2 body out of the deal. But it's just not good enough to matter, unfortunately. All right, that's all for today. We'll catch you tomorrow. See ya.